From accusations about anti-Semitism and homophobia to charges of battery and DUI, Mr. Gibson has had it all. He'd hit rock bottom, much like his character in the film The Beaver, but while he used the hand puppet in the film to lift himself up, in real life, Mel Gibson used films like Hacksaw Ridge, which got nominated for 6 categories at the Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. The film thawed his cold reputation, and Gibson finally gave films like The Passion of the Christ. And now he's back with an update on the 4th sequel to the Lethal Weapon films, which is being called the Lethal Finale. So yeah, in this video, we're going to tell you everything we know about the upcoming film, if Gibson and Glover will return as L.A.P.D. Sergeants Martin Riggs and Roger Murtaugh, and much more. Before we get into our explanation though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The original Lethal Weapon shot Mel Gibson and Danny Glover to action hero status and led to 3 sequels, expanding the cast to include stars like Joe Pesci, Rene Russo, and Chris Rock. For years, there's been talk about a Lethal Weapon 5, with Gibson even offering to direct after the death of the original director, Richard Donner, in 2021. Gibson recently shared an update on the long-awaited sequel, and it's a mix of good and bad news. After spending some time in direct-to-DVD projects, which could not have been very nice, Gibson is making another movie that would cement his comeback. Despite his off-screen controversies that affected his career, he's getting back into the spotlight. He's directing Flight Risk with Mark Wahlberg, and there are even rumors about him helming The Passion of the Christ 2. During a recent Fan X event in Salt Lake City, Gibson was again asked about Lethal Weapon 5. He said, "The 5th one is written. It's interesting. It's been held up for one reason or another. There's always issues with these things. I think it's the best one of the whole series, but it just won't get made for some reason or another. I can't even explain why." So while the script is ready, the movie is stuck in limbo for now, leaving fans to wonder if they'll ever see Riggs and Murtaugh back on the big screen. When chatting with Comic Book, Mel Gibson explained that figuring out which project will move forward is like a crapshoot because there are so many factors that can slow things down. He admitted he's not sure which sequel will come first. He said, "There are so many obstacles to getting any film off the ground, not just budget issues, but a million reasons why something happens or doesn't. So right now, it's really a toss-up as to what goes first." Back in 2021, Gibson announced his interest in directing Lethal Weapon 5. He stepped up to take over after the passing of the original director, Richard Donner, who had been working on the plot of the 5th installment before his death. Speaking on Stephen Oleksi's podcast, Gibson mentioned that Donner had entrusted him with the project, which he called a privilege. He also hinted that the movie would address some hard issues while keeping the franchise's signature humor intact. Donner had directed the original Lethal Weapon and its 4 sequels, starring Gibson and Danny Glover, before he passed in 2021. In addition to Lethal Weapon 5, Gibson is also set to direct a follow-up to his 2004 biblical hit, The Passion of the Christ, this time focusing on the resurrection. The original film became a cult classic and cemented Gibson's reputation as a filmmaker. Alright, we think there's a lot to break down here. Personally, we think the first Lethal Weapon is one of the greatest action comedies ever made, and its sequel, Lethal Weapon 2, might just be the best follow-up in movie history. The chemistry between Gibson and Danny Glover as Riggs and Murtaugh, 2 mismatched cops who become like brothers, is what makes these films unforgettable. But do we really need another one? Our minds immediately go to the disaster that was A Good Day to Die Hard, the 5th Die Hard movie, which was an absolute train wreck and a painful sequel for fans. But when Gibson says this script is the best of the whole series, it definitely makes us curious. This isn't some amateur director hyping up their passion project. This is Mel Gibson talking about a Lethal Weapon sequel most people didn't even realize they wanted, and he believes it could top the others. There's been talk of a new Lethal Weapon for years. If it happens now, they would definitely need to address the fact that Gibson and Glover are 68 and 78, but a story that leans into their age and focuses on a serious case instead of the slapstick from parts 3 and 4 could actually work. Imagine a dramatic Lethal Weapon 5 where Riggs and Murtaugh finally confront their own mortality. Now, that's something we could be interested in seeing. What happened at the end of Lethal Weapon 4? Could it affect Lethal Weapon 5? In Lethal Weapon 4, the focus shifts to the personal lives of Riggs and Murtaugh, and it gets evidently clear that they share strong bonds with their families and with each other. Riggs was expecting a baby with Lorna Cole. Though they aren't married yet, they're both considering it. On the flip side, Murtaugh is about to become a grandfather, as his daughter Rianne is also pregnant. But Rianne was keeping the father's identity a secret because he's Detective Lee Butters, a cop, and they're afraid Murtaugh won't approve. Amidst the chaos chaos of their latest case, family becomes central. Murtaugh offers shelter to the Hong family, a group of Chinese immigrants trying to escape deportation, in his home. Meanwhile, Riggs learns about Butters being the father of Rianne's child, and despite the secrecy, the revelation doesn't tear them apart. As the action intensifies, Murtaugh's house becomes the target of the triads, and both families are put in danger. Ping, the Hong family's grandson, becomes the unexpected hero as he helps them escape from a fire set by the triads. Towards the film's conclusion, the tension eases with both Lorna and Rianne giving birth. Riggs, having asked his late wife for advice, finally feels ready for fatherhood. At the hospital, surrounded by family and friends, Riggs and Lorna are married just before their son is born. Murtaugh, who's finally come around, embraces Butters as part of the family, making peace with their new, growing clan. So now that Riggs and Murtaugh have younger members in their families born during the late 90s, they could be in their 30s by now. Murtaugh became a grandfather to a baby girl, and Riggs became father to a baby boy. Could these two children grow up to become cops or join some sort of other force like the CIA or the FBI? Well, the kids could find themselves in trouble, and the old guard could come to protect them, much like what happened in movies like Shaft, the one which started with Richard Roundtree, followed up by Samuel L. Jackson, and finally, we got like a third generation of the Shafts in the form of A-Train, Jesse T. Usher. While the third Shaft movie was far from the standards of A Good Day to Die Hard, both movies have a similar story. We just hope if Lethal Weapon tries to go on this path, they better not mess it up. Anyways, we just want to end this by saying that Mel Gibson isn't exactly a Hollywood favorite these days, which might be why this project has been stuck in Hollywood limbo. Plus, can it really work without Richard Donner at the helm? And are we ready for an older Riggs and Murtaugh? Personally, we'd love to see them get one last chance to wrap up the series on a high note, especially if the script is as good as Gibson says. We'll keep you updated on Lethal Weapon 5 with every little scrap of news that comes out, so don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for watching.